Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni muli wanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so delighted that you're joining us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to subscribe to the show in the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, wherever you find your podcast. We have two wonderful guests today. Annemarie Riley Guertin is here to celebrate ABC Rise Up and Be. And a little bit later on, we'll be meeting Gabe Jensen, the author of Neverwoof. Before we invite our guests into the studio, we want to invite you to join us at two amazing events coming up in the next few weeks. On August 28th, the Reading with Your Kids podcast will be back at Connect Fest, a great family music festival happening on Cape Cod Fairgrounds in Falmouth, Massachusetts. It's a free concert. You do need tickets because they do have a capacity limit. You can get those free tickets by going to fuseconcerts.org. Come on out. Our buddy Phil Joel, the author of Redwoods in Wales and a former member of the Newsboys, will be one of the headlining artists on the main stage. We'll be presenting our totally interactive family magic show, and we'll also have our Reading with Your Kids booth. Come on down. Be a part of the podcast. And on September 18th, join us in beautiful downtown Lowell, Massachusetts for the Lowell Kinetic Sculpture Race. I am really excited about this event. There's going to be all sorts of homemade, human-powered kinetic vehicles that are going to race over mud and the street and in the water and sand, and it's going to be incredible. Our Reading with Your Kids booth will be at the start and finish line. Come on over, see a little bit of magic, check out some of the great books we'll have on display, win some books, be a part of the podcast. Come on down September 18th, downtown Lowell, Massachusetts, the Lowell Connecticut Sculpture Race. You can find out more about these events and find out how we can come to your community by going to our website, readingwithyourkids.com. I always love when I have a neighbor on the show. And now, we're not living in the same neighborhood, but considering the fact that we interview authors from all over the world, this guest is an absolute neighbor. I could probably walk to her house. It would take me a while, but I could get there. Join us right now from Haverhill, Massachusetts. She's returning to the show to celebrate a brand new picture book that my beautiful wife loves. It's called ABC Rise Up and Be. Please welcome back Annemarie Riley Guertin. Hey, Annemarie, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me, Jed. So happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I was sharing with Annemarie that my beautiful wife, who is possibly the toughest critic when it comes to picture books, when it comes to any kind of book, she's been teaching for 33 years. She absolutely loves ABC Rise Up and Be. Tell us a little bit about what we'll find in this book.
So this is an inspirational alphabet book for young children. The idea behind it came about last May when this country was going through a little bit of a rut patch. My husband and I were having dinner, and we were talking about the traits that we want to instill in our own children. And, you know, I started to make an alphabetical list the next morning, and then I realized, hey, I could turn this into a picture book as is. So that's kind of how the idea came to be. And so I pitched it to David Miles, who is the founder of Bushel and Peck Books, and he loved it right away. And so we teamed up and we created what you see now.
This is wonderful. And I love this because we're not only introducing kids to some great values that we want to instill in them, but we're introducing them also to some great icons who walked the walk.
It's true.
Yeah.
It is. That was important to us. We wanted to find some people who embodied these character traits and then expose children to people they may not have known from our past, people who walk among us now, and just realize the great things that they've done in this world, and that, you read this, you embody this, you can be just like the people that you see in this book.
Yeah.
Make the world a better place.
We talk a lot about all the value, all the benefits of reading with our kids. And the one that we celebrate a lot here on the show is just that bond that grows between a parent and child, a caregiver and a child when you're reading together, especially at this age. But it's such a wonderful way to instill values in our kids without sitting down and lecturing to them, because we all know that's useless. We might as well just talk to a tree. Just lecturing kids it's not going to do the job. But showing the kids stories and relating those stories and giving them examples of people that, like I said, have walked the walk and have actually been able to accomplish, these pretty difficult values and live them in their lives.
True. Yeah. It's true. And I hope that it inspires children. There's a beautiful biographies about each person on the page if they're not familiar with the illustrations and who they might be. But we just felt like it was a powerful way to get a message across to children that you have the power to rise up and be amazing just like these people. It's all within us.
Yeah. And I have a feeling that it's a pretty inspirational book for some parents, too, because, I know even now, there's things that I want to do that sometimes it just seems, I know this is the right thing to do, but I don't know if I can do this by myself. I don't know if I'm strong enough to go out and find people who can help me do this. This is a great way just to remind old folks like me that we still got time left in this world to make a difference.
We sure do. All it takes is waking up that day and deciding today's the day that I want to make this difference. It's all in us. We have it all.
I like that. Today is the day. Make that choice when you wake up in the morning. Today is the day that I make a difference. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So tell us some of the values that we're talking about. So there's 26 letters in the alphabet, so 26 different values. Why don't we just start with A? We don't have to go through all of them, but I'm just curious, what's the first value that we'll be learning?
It's accepting. And I'm a teacher. I work with children, and that's, part of what we try to instill in our students. We are accepting of all people, no matter what walk of life they come from, religion, disability. We accept all people. We are all here. We all have a purpose. And we look to each other to learn from one another. So being accepting of everyone makes the world a better place. So that's the very first trait.
I like that. And, it's interesting. We're talking about values oftentimes, and the public schools are the place where it happens, where kids from different faith traditions and different cultures come together. And oftentimes some of those values, some of those beliefs clash with other values. And I think it's really important for us, even if we hold deeply religious beliefs. I'm not a scholar or an expert on world religions, but I've actually studied them fairly extensively and more than I think most people, just because I'm weird like that. But I think all the studies that I've shown that while there may be differences in these different religions, they all come down to loving others and loving human beings, loving humanity, accepting others, respecting others. And I think that is something, what a great way to start the book, helping our kids understand that even if we disagree with somebody and we're on polar opposite ends of a spectrum, we can still accept them. We can still respect them.
Yes, absolutely. And those are some of the traits. I have respecting. I have being humble and kind, all the things that we want our children to be, mm-hmm. and the people around us to be. So it's a good reminder to us as adults, too, because sometimes we forget.
Yeah. Now, I'm accepting A comes right to, that's a great way to start off. I am really curious. What value starts with Z?
Zestful. So you
Zestful. Yes. Of course.
So a thirst for adventure. right?
I like that. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Everybody always tells me they love my zesty attitude here on the show, except my wife, who has to hear it. But, zestful, that's really cool. Now, I love that, again, as I said, you're not only telling kids about these values, you're introducing them to people that are living or who live these values. Who are some of the people that are still alive today that we'll meet in ABC Rise Up and Be?
Jane Goodall, she's in there. She's for big-hearted and, loving the environment that you're in and taking care of it. Sandra Day O'Connor, another fabulous one, talks about, listening, and everyone deserves an ally. So being fair and non-judgmental, that kind of thing. So her letter is J for just. So she is just. Bob Dylan is also in there. He's a great activist. So, he writes through his music, and he's won, a Nobel Peace Prize in literature. So we have him in there. He's living. We have a variety of some really wonderful people in here.
Yeah.
And then we have some great figures from our past that, paved the way for the way that children are able to live in this society and be accepted and loved for who they are. So, Harriet Tubman, we have Dr. Martin Luther King in there, so Dalai Lama. So a lot of great people.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite?
Do I have a favorite? Well, I love all of the traits that I put in there, but Walt Disney is my favorite. He's in there, and I love Disney. I love being imaginative, and he was a big dreamer, and without the dreamers, none of these things would be possible. So for me, that holds being a creative person myself, that one's special to me.
Yeah. Now, was it difficult finding these examples and to match them up to the different values?
No, I had a great idea from the very beginning of who I wanted where. It was just finding the right letters. I had the people in my brain, and it was just trying to figure out what letter they would go with, that I found a little bit challenging. David helped me work through that a little bit. I think we came up with a great, great mix of just different people who embody these traits.
Yeah. Hey, tell everybody where they can go to connect more with you and find out more about ABC Rise Up and Be.
So they can visit my website, AnnemaRieRileyGuertin.com. They can find my books anywhere books are sold, bookstores, Amazon. But if you want to learn more about me and some of my upcoming projects, my website or my Twitter handle, @RileyGuertin, will be the best place to see what I have coming up.
We've had a great time speaking to the author of ABC Rise Up and Be, a brand new book from a brand new publisher, Bushel and Peck Books. And our guest has been Annemarie Riley Guertin. Hey, Annemarie, thanks so much for being back here on the Reading With You Kids podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Before we invite Gabe Jensen into the studio, we want to invite you to connect with us on social media. Facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, @JedleyMagic on Twitter, @ReadingWithYourKids on Instagram. We love interacting with the members of our Reading With Your Kids family. We love to interact with you. And, of course, please subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Ghana, Stitcher Radio, Himalaya, Podchaser, Podcast Addict. You get the picture. We're available wherever you find your podcasts. Joining us right now from the San Francisco area in California, our guest has a brand new book coming out. It's called Neverwoof, the dog who never barked. Please welcome to the show, Gabe Jensen. Gabe, welcome to the Reading With Your Kids podcast.
Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to have you on. Our friends at Familius are publishing Neverwoof. Please tell us about this.
So Neverwoof is a dog who doesn't bark. And everyone loves him in the neighborhood because he doesn't cause any trouble and he doesn't make any noise. But one night, a robber comes to his family's home, and he has to decide, is he going to stay true to himself, or is he going to open his mouth up and warn his family?
That is quite a dilemma.
Yeah, so it's a book really about finding your voice in a way that's true to you. So I won't give away the ending, but he figures out a way to keep true to himself as Neverwoof, but still save his family from the famous robber Stinky Sue is her name.
I love that. I love that. This is, I think, this sounds like a really fun book, but it also sounds like something that a lot of kids struggle with, finding their own voice.
Right.
Why was this important for you this story important for you to tell?
So when I was a kid, when I was 7 years old, my family moved from a small farm in rural Kentucky to smack dab in the middle of Brooklyn, New York. So this was a very shocking change for me. And when I first moved there, I was incredibly shy. I didn't have the hang of what was going on in the big city. And so at first, you start to look around you and your first instinct is to sort of copy what other people do in some cases. And who I was. So it took me some time of adjusting and trying different things and experimenting to figure out who I really wanted to be.
Talk about a culture shock going from rural Kentucky to New York City. You probably didn't even speak the same English that they did.
Exactly. The first step was learn the idioms of the block. And the block I was on was a little on the rougher side. So right away, I think in the first week, I think I may have gotten into a little bit of a fist fight, and I was like, wow, this is quite different. So there was a bit of a language of sort of toughness on my street, and I found that for me, that wasn't necessarily what I wanted to be. So when it came to finding my own voice, I actually ended up gravitating towards stickball, because that was a way that I could be a part of the crew on the block, but in a way that was true to me, that was nonviolent.
Yeah. I don't think, this kind of just occurred to me. I grew up in Boston in a very similar neighborhood, and people, I don't think, realize, and I didn't realize it, that there is a culture in these East Coast city neighborhoods, Boston, New York, Philadelphia, Hartford, Providence, that doesn't exist in other places, and it can be a real culture shock to some people.
Yes, exactly. So, and the other thing I turned to was definitely creativity. That was an important outlet for me. So I started drawing at an early age, and by the time I was in high school, I decided what I really want to do is be a New Yorker cartoonist. So I was in the center of where the New Yorker was, and their one-panel cartoons. I thought, well, that's what I want to do, and I ended up taking some classes with one of the New Yorker cartoonists named Mort Gerberg. And one of the things he did in his class, because he was all about not just doing cartoons, but using your visuals for a lot of things. One of the weeks he talked about kids' books. And he said one of the things cartoonists can do is to draw kids' books. And I thought, oh, okay, this is really interesting to me. So I was 19 years old, and I thought, I'm going to make a kids' book, and I'm going to go try to publish it. So that was my first attempt at making a kids' book. And here, 30 years later, I'm proud to say that I finally got there.
Well, we always talk about the fact that failure is just one step towards success, and we're really happy that you didn't give up on it and that you kept on taking those steps This is, you've been involved in a lot of creative things as a professional. We'll talk about some of those, but now that you've finally achieved this, you got the picture book written after 30 years of trying. How does that feel?
It feels great. When I first got the email back, it was, I had to, I called my friend of mine at the time who was a teacher. I was so excited. She was the first one I wanted to tell. but it was nap time at her school, so she couldn't say anything back to me. So it was just me being excited and exploded, and her just kind of like, whispering, congratulations, but she couldn't really be excited about it. So, yes, very, very gratifying after all this time.
Yeah. And share with us, people heard, you tried this at 19, tried to get it published at 19, and it took you 30 years later. So but it wasn't like you tried it at 19 and then you just kind of put it on the back shelf for 30 years. How many rejections did you get?
So I think I'm up to about 300. There's I'd say so I worked in kids media, but not kids books for a while. I worked on digital projects, so primarily games. I actually had Jeff Kinney, the author of Diary of a Wimpy Kid, was my boss at one point. He has, as an aside from his books, he has a website called Pop Tropica, which is a kids game. And so I programmed for that game for a while. And I did a bunch of other kids projects, but eventually, and it was one of those things where I always sort of had it in the back of my mind, something I want to do, but I wasn't really taking it seriously. And that was the reason it wasn't going anywhere. So it was about 5 years ago when I realized that, there's no way to guarantee something is going to happen, but all you can do is control that small percentage. And I needed to take it from close to 0 because I wasn't doing enough with it to whatever the number is. It's probably about 10 at the maximum. And that's when I started to get serious and join groups and join a writing group and all of that.
Yeah. One of the things you mentioned in the talking points that you sent to me, and it just kind of stood out, you mentioned that you were raised by hippie parents.
Right.
Being accused of being a hippie growing up when I was young, what was that like for you?
So it was interesting. So I was born in this commune in New Mexico that's made of adobe, and it's called New Buffalo. And that was actually, they gave me, my middle name is Buffalo, from being born there. And it was actually featured in Life magazine, in I think the summer, that my mom was pregnant with me. There was this big spread in Life magazine, the hippies, this is how they're living. And they showed our commune. So needless to say, part of the ethos of the commune was everyone's welcome. So everyone reading that story from wherever they were thought, I know what I'm doing this summer. So the commune got a bit inundated, and my parents decided that they didn't necessarily want to live at a commune, but the ideal thing to do is to live near a commune. So when we moved to Kentucky, there was a commune near us of people that we knew called the Frog Farm. And so it was interesting. There was a lot less rules growing up that way. I still think that I'm maybe not that great dealing with money, but creativity was valued from an early age. And my dad is actually a science fiction author named Terry Bisson, and he was able to make a career from his writing. And he's not one of the big names out there, but people who are very into science fiction might have heard of him. So that was great for me to always see that as an example of creative endeavors being really important.
Yeah. What can you say to parents out there who, like my parents at the time, they have this kid who's really talented, very, very creative. I want to do this. I want to create video games. I want to be an author of children's books. I want to make my living in the arts. How can you help those parents not fear that their child will starve?
Right. So I think the key is to enable them as early as you can to really explore it. My own daughter had an interest in filmmaking at a very early age. We put her in some camps and bought her some equipment. And actually over time, in her case, she decided it wasn't necessarily what she wanted to do. I think if we hadn't done that, she might have kept it as this thing this possibility, and without exploring it, wouldn't have known. And by giving them those tools, you also find out, and hopefully it's something they will be inspired about, and they'll keep moving forward. And to me, they have to be pretty inspired about it, I think. It can't just be this idle thing. When, when I wanted to be a cartoonist, I was drawing on like the early computer tablets when they first came out, until 2 a.m. And, it was an obsession. And I think if you see that level of obsession, you probably had it once you discovered what you wanted to do. That to me shows that the kid is serious about it. Also, I think it's entirely reasonable to say, hey, you don't just have to have one interest. You can pursue this creative thing and also look at something else that may be a little more practical as a parallel path.
Yeah. And I like how you said parallel path and not backup plan. And I think, and I that's a little language gymnastics that I think parents would be really smart to use, because backup plan, you're putting in the kid's mind, I think you're going to fail and you need something to fall back on. Whereas parallel plan, you're telling your kid, I respect you. You're really intelligent. You have lots of things you can do, and you can be creative, and you can also do this other thing that you've been interested in.
True.
Yeah. Now, tell everybody, please, where people can go to find out more about Neverwoof, the dog who never barked, and find out more about you.
Sure. So my site is www.gabejensenbooks.com. And I also on Instagram at GabeJBooks and on Twitter at Gabe Jensen Books.
We've had a great time speaking about a lot. Oh, we got to give your dad, you mentioned that your dad is a science fiction writer. Let's give him a shout out. What's he best known for?
So he wrote a book called They're Made Out of Meat, which is aliens come down and they see humans, but instead of connecting them to the galactic community, they're grossed out by them, and they leave us in our solitude. So it's called They're Made Out of Meat by Terry Bisson.
We've had a great time talking about people made out of meat, talking about Neverwoof, and creativity with our friend Gabe Jensen. Hey, Gabe, thanks so much for spending time with us.
Thank you, Jed.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We'll have 2 great guests joining us. Albus Sachs, the author of The Pirate Princess and the president of Reading is Fundamental Southern California, will be back on the show to tell us about her great book and also to talk about the state of literacy, not only in Southern California, but throughout the United States. We'll also be welcoming Karen Cushman. She'll be celebrating her middle grade novel, War and Millie McGonigal. That's the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Hey, if you're the author of a great children's book, we would love to have you as a guest on the show. Being a guest, it's fun. It's easy. It gives you the chance to tell thousands of people about your fantastic book, and it doesn't cost a thing. No need to pay anybody to facilitate your visit. We do that all for you. Just go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com, click on the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page, scroll on down to be a guest. Right now, I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, I want to start by thanking our guest, Annemarie Riley Guertin. Check out ABC Rise Up and Be. Also want to thank Gabe Jensen. Check out Neverwoof. I want to thank my team, Alejandra Doherty, Fatima Khan, Justina Thompson, Helen Frazier. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.